Welcome to this impartial historical analysis. I am absolutely thrilled you're here. Today, we're looking at the direct aftermath of the Second World War. When we look back at the global economic landscape, it is incredibly tempting to just compare the recovery of different nations side by side, kind of treating it like it was a completely fair race. But to truly understand these massive economic miracles we read about, we have to look really closely at the exact inputs that fueled them.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, an important question.
So we constantly hear these comparisons between countries that somehow rebuilt themselves from the ashes of the war, right? And the assumption is usually that everyone just started from zero on day one of peace. But we really have to pause and ask, were the circumstances of both nations equal? Think about that for a second. When the dust finally settled across the globe in 1945, did every recovering nation actually have the exact same starting line? It's a fascinating geopolitical mystery, and honestly, it fundamentally changes how we view modern economic history.
Absolutely not. So the crucial point is that we must shatter this assumption of equal post-war circumstances right here and now. The playing field was entirely uneven. I mean, literally tilted. While a ton of nations were left to just rebuild entirely on their own, severely lacking in basic resources, capital, and infrastructure, Japan's trajectory was fundamentally altered by external factors. As our source highlights, they had this completely unique set of advantages that dramatically, and I mean dramatically, accelerated their recovery.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Section 2, the 4 pillars of development.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is just the sheer volume of structural support we're talking about here. This wasn't just a little bit of marginal help on the side. There was a comprehensive, highly targeted advantage that we can basically break down into 4 distinct pillars. First up, security protection. America essentially provided a giant defense umbrella. That meant Japan didn't have to drain its own shattered economy to fund a massive military. Second, investment. We're talking about a massive influx of capital flowing in to rebuild their infrastructure and their industry. Third, technology. They gained unprecedented access to advanced American technological innovations, basically allowing them to skip the line and leapfrog years of slow research and development. And fourth, a vast American market. This was perhaps the most vital economic engine of the whole shebang, giving Japanese goods direct, incredibly lucrative access to a booming consumer base in the United States. So this wasn't just some simple recovery plan, it was an absolute economic turbocharger.
Which brings us to the direct historical consequence of all that massive support. Section 3, Cold War ally.
And this brilliantly illustrates the reality of the situation. America didn't just provide this unprecedented level of backing in a vacuum, right? It was a highly strategic move, heavily driven by the rapidly shifting global dynamics of the era. The world was quickly fracturing into 2 distinct ideological blocks, which brings us exactly to our source's conclusion. Japan became America's most important ally in the Cold War. This was the ultimate geopolitical trade-off. The security protection, the deep financial investment, the shared tech, the open markets, these were all deliberate building blocks that transformed Japan into a crucial, strategic stronghold for the United States in the Pacific. It wasn't just a random economic miracle happening in total isolation, it was a meticulously constructed alliance.
Which brings us to a critical realization to end on today. When we look at global economic charts or when we compare the progress of nations today, do we remember that their starting lines were never the same? The next time you see a direct comparison of national growth trajectories, really ask yourself, what unseen pillars of development, what historical alliances or hidden structural advantages might actually be propping up the data right in front of you? It completely changes the way we understand global success. Keep that in mind, keep analyzing the data, and I'll see you for our next analysis.